Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be your host today on Archery Talk 101. And we have Mitch on the line with us. And we're going to talk to him about what his archery journey is and what he's doing with it and where he plans on going. Welcome to the show, Mitch.
Hey, thanks, Roy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. If you could introduce yourself and tell the listeners and watchers a little something about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Mitch Newcomer. Currently live in Waukene, Kansas, which is in the western half of the state. I was born and raised out here on the farm. Lived in Kansas City for around 10 years, where I started my family with my wife, and then worked for Midwest Land Group and kind of got the opportunity to relocate back out here to Western Kansas. And so I figured I would jump at the opportunity. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I have two daughters, 10 and soon to be 8 years old, and they're working shooting crossbow and things like that. And so they're kind of starting their archery journey, I guess you could say, at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I count archery a stick with a string flinging another stick, and a
Yeah,
crossbow fits that, so
got to start somewhere. So
yeah. And a nice thing about crossbows with the younger kids is they can shoot those higher poundages, and you can go out and hunt and don't have to worry about, are they pulling enough weight to make that shot, and that's
exactly. And I like them too for multiple reasons. One, it can serve as a backup bow for me. If for some reason something happens to my bow on November 7th, I don't really feel like sitting out at that point in time. And, and also it's interchangeable for my daughters to my wife. They can all shoot it. They don't need their own specific bow with the poundages and everything set up specifically for them. So it does make a nice, tool to use across multiple people. There's, archery is not a cheap hobby. So before I go buy expensive bows, I at least want to make sure they're pretty serious about it first. So
right. And everybody, has their own or its reason for what they're shooting. And, I like the compounds, and, I do have a recurve. My son's got a crossbow, but I haven't shot it. But, that's nice, because you don't have to worry about as much practice time as you do with a compound, or as much of the recurve. I'm not going to put in the work it takes to get good at shooting a recurve to go hunt with it.
exactly. Yeah. It boils down to time and making sure you're ethical when you're out there in the field, and that you're deadly with the weapon that you've got in your hands. Excuse me, they're talking about trying to get into maybe going to kill a deer and stuff this fall. And so we've been working with it, but with all the activities and stuff they're in, there's no way they could be, deadly with any type of bow other than a crossbow at this point.
Crossbow.
So,
Yeah. So for those that are listening and watching, I just want to let you know that we go live in the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, so you can see it when we're recording it. And we also, the podcast is on Spotify and other places, as well as on Audible. And then you can also watch it on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested, just get hold of us. There's some way of getting hold of us, and, let's just talk about archery. That's the things we like to do. And, with that, one question for you, Mitch, how did you get started, and why did you get started in archery?
So, I've always been into hunting from the time I could walk and carry a weapon. I've been wanting to do it. And, really it started with, your 22s and, pellet guns and things of that nature, and even bows. I had light poundage bows when I was young, and it was always about the hunting. It's always resonated with me, been fired up about it. I wasn't one of those kids that they had to slowly get me into it. I was one they almost had to hold me back a little bit, because I just wanted to do it all the time. And so that meant hunting by any means, including archery. Really was into the bird hunting as a kid. We had a couple short hairs growing up, even guided hunts eventually in high school and into college there. But that was kind of my first love of hunting. And then when I was young, the regulations have changed so much over the years. You used to not be able to rifle hunt and things of that nature until you were older than what they allow now. And so, archery was my first opportunity to get into deer hunting, and, killing a deer when you're a kid is kind of a big goal, especially out here. And so, I remember the first bow that I hunted with was my dad's. I don't even know what brand it was. It was a compound bow. It didn't have camo. It was wood. So he painted it up with his own camo and everything. And it was Easton aluminum arrows and things of that nature. And then eventually I think we got a bear that it was newer, but not much. And it was the same way, still aluminum arrows and all that. And I was hunting with those when I could. The tough part for me with archery was I was in sports of all kinds growing up, played college football. So, I mean, really, I didn't dive into archery hunting until I got done with college, was able to buy my first, what I call legitimate bow setup. It was a ready to shoot package from Bass Pro Bear. But I killed a lot of deer with it. So that
Yeah.
really, once I got that and, started using a release and things of that nature, because before I was just fingers on the string, aluminum arrows, and I did hunt, when I could, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I was hunting in areas that are not necessarily conducive to bow hunting. You're on the ground walking through CRP and things and just kind of trial and error it. So I didn't have a ton of success in the, my youth, but then, yeah, once I got out of college, got that bow and started going, is when I really started having success. And that's when I really got into it more. So.
Yeah, everybody's story is a little different, and it's always so neat listening to everybody's story, how they got started. And that's why I asked that question right up front. It's like I'm interested, how everybody got started. Everybody's story is different, and it's just unique and exciting how different people get into it different ways. And nice that you have your kids are in there shooting bows and getting into the hunting, and it's just a whole lot of fun doing that kind of stuff. And I know my
Yeah.
kids started out young, shooting bows, and my oldest still shoots some. My
Mhm.
youngest doesn't shoot much right now, but hey,
It's
that they can always
fun.
pick it up.
It's fun. It's fun seeing them get into it. And I'm excited to see kind of how this plays out. It seems like my younger daughter right now is actually a little bit more into it than the older one is. And so she was mad at me here last night because we couldn't go out and shoot the crossbow. And it was just a little windy and we had some stuff going on. I didn't want to be out there practicing in windy conditions. And, she's just trying to get it all figured out. So I think she's going to
Yeah,
be one that takes off with it. Definitely not strong enough to pull any type of, bow back that could actually kill an animal. It would have to be something very, very light poundage. But if she gets into it enough, we'll figure something out and we can kind of see how this plays out. So
yeah. You said she's just turning 8,
she'll turn 8 in October. So
October.
yep,
Yeah, they're not going to pull more than about 10 pounds, 15 pounds
exactly.
maybe, and that's not enough to hunt with.
Yep, not even close.
Maybe
So
rabbits.
yeah, maybe,
That
but
should be about it. But yeah, that
yeah.
crossbow gets her in the field now. And
Yeah, and she's pretty accurate with it. So I mean, she says she wants to hunt this year. We'll see if she can stay consistent with it. And I mean, we'll keep her shots within a certain range, and then we'll probably try to get her out there at some point. So
yeah, get her out there, get her in the field, and you'll have a hunting partner for the rest of your life.
exactly, that's the hope. So
Yeah, it's always nice when you go out hunting with somebody, and it's even better when if it's your own kids when you get out, because then it's exciting, watching them, you know, take their first shot and get their first animal. It's like, so I'm more excited about watching them do that than it is if I got my own,
yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, no, it will be. And, I mean, even my wife, she didn't grow up hunting or anything. She's from a hunting family, but she went out and got her first turkey here a couple springs ago and with a shotgun, but still just getting
Yeah,
her into the hunting and seeing her, the excitement that she had with that was pretty cool. So kind of getting the whole family involved at this point. And really, if we get an opportunity, we're both busy with work, so it's hard to find times that work for
right.
us to get out, but she's another one that hopefully we'll be getting out with the crossbow here at first and seeing how things play out. So
Yeah, that's a good step for that. There's a lot of them don't think that, that's a valid way to go, but I think it's a great way to go. And then later on they might stay with the crossbow, may to say, hey, you know what? I want to try a compound.
yeah, with
It's much
with
easier to
girls,
reload.
yeah, oh yeah, with girls, you know, me being a guy, being a hunter, being a football player, all that, you expect to have boys eventually, and they're just going to follow in your path, but with girls, it's a little bit different. And I'm not saying, some girls aren't ate up with it right out the gate and they want to, just go dive right into it, but it's probably a little bit less common that way. I would say, at least for my girls. I mean, I think they have like an outside interest, but they're not like, I'd be waking my dad up at 5 a.m. wanting to go hunting when I was like 5, 6 years old. They're not doing that type of stuff. So, I'm just trying to ease them in it. I don't want them to get bored with it. I don't want them to lose interest to the point where they're like, this isn't fun and they just want to go in a different direction. So
yeah, just keep it fun for them. If they want to go out, take them out. If they don't want to go out, then don't.
exactly. And that's the way it is right now. It's definitely back burner for them. But I think they're starting to show a little bit more. They went out with me this year and I killed a turkey. And so they got to see that. And so they're kind of starting to see some more. And, the good thing is they're fairly patient, out there, which is, I guess, probably kind of a nice thing about having girls. I think boys probably attention spans might be a little bit less on some of that stuff, but
I think so.
yeah, so that helps from that regard. So, but yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Our season opened up here September 11th in Kansas for muzzleloader and archery, and we had our youth season before that, I think September 2nd through the 10th, and we were hoping to maybe make it out, but it was just terribly hot weather the whole youth season out here, like triple digits, a lot of it, and bad winds, and we just didn't have anything to really slip out on. So right now we're just kind of being patient, watching the weather and practicing and just getting ready for when the time is right. So
yeah, we've had a lot of the same weather because I'm just a little bit north of you in Nebraska, in eastern part of Nebraska. So yeah, that we had some pretty hot days in there, and it's like there's no way I'm gonna go out and try and hunt in that heat. If you do get something, you've got hours before the meat's gonna start spoiling because it's so hot out.
yes, exactly. And if you don't have a setup that you can just get it cleaned and in a cooler right away, that's going to be tough. Yeah. I mean, guys are getting it done. There's no doubt. I've been seeing several guys killing some nice bucks already. So if you got a deer on pattern that you want to get after, I mean, they're still super consistent, whether it's hot or not right now. So, if you can get it done, it's hard not to want to slip out, if you've got a buck pattern that's showing up, in daylight every night. But that is something that entered my mind, is just, what do you do with it once you kill it? I mean, you got to get that thing cleaned up, quartered up right away on ice. I mean, you're going to have, like you said, time is going to be of the essence for sure, especially if you make a bad shot or a questionable shot and then you're leaving it sit. Well, he could be dead for an hour. You don't know, and so if you think you hit liver and you clip back of both lungs and liver, I mean, he's going to die a lot sooner than you thought, and he could be laying there for a few hours because you didn't want to go push in, and so that's always in the back of your mind. But
that's what's nice about morning hunts, because it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
You get when you got daylight to track it, and it's getting hot. It's not already hot trying to cool off, and that makes it a little bit nicer. But we're going to start getting a little cooler weather now, so.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate. I think almost every buck I've killed has been in the morning. I did shoot one at 1:30 in the afternoon one time, but that was, that's still plenty of time to go track at that point. So, but I'm kind of in a situation now where I can hunt more evenings, early season, late season, things like that. I hate to push in on a morning right now, unless you got a pretty dynamite access where you feel like you're not going to be, running out. I mean, I guess at this point where I'm at is, we do eat a lot of venison, so meat is something that we're after. But at the same time, I mean, I'm primarily hunting 5+ year old bucks, so and usually specific deer, so I'm a little bit more strategic a lot of times when I'm going into places and hunting mornings this time of year. I would do it if I had a setup to where I feel like I could get in and not bump a bunch of deer, but I don't really have that right now. So but so primarily hunting evenings now, and then we'll switch to mornings here once we get into October and get some cooler weather and some more rut activity and things picking up. So
it's nice to have options. And the two properties that I have are the one is mostly traveling at night, so we got to get them coming there during the day, and they do come during the day once in a while, but not consistently. So we just got to figure it out. There's a lot of coyotes there, so my goal this year is to try and get rid of some of the coyotes and try to help for the deer, because there's right there where they come through just for a light. There's a den right there at that same spot. So time to get the coyotes reduced and
yeah, I'm seeing mostly a lot of nocturnal. I mean, I'm seeing some, last 15 minutes of daylight right now, maybe first 30 in the morning, something like that. And I've got a couple bucks that are pushing it, but they're not, they're just not consistent enough to really try to hunt. So we'll just wait. I mean, it's like I say, with the weather being hot, it's not bothering me too much to be sitting out there in 90-degree heat sweating. So I'm fine with
Yeah.
waiting to get it a little cooler. But once they do, I mean, it's hard if you got a buck that's patterned up and showing consistently, 2 or 3 days in a row. It's hard not to slip out if you got the right wind to try to get after them too. So
Right.
you got to strike while the iron's hot, so, but yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. What is it you do for your regular job?
So I'm a land agent with Midwest Land Group. So we sell, ag farms, pasture, recreational build sites, homes on acreage, all of that. So, yep, we're based out of Leawood, Kansas, there in Kansas City area, and kind of scattered across the Midwest. Probably if you have viewers across the Midwest, I'm sure they're starting to see us pop up all over the place at this point. So
Well, we have viewers all over the world, so
there you go. Well, they're probably starting to see it if they look for land in the Midwest, hunting properties, things like that. I'm sure you're going to see us. So
what's the name of your website?
MidwestLandGroup.com.
Type it right, Midwest Land Group. Hey, you know what? We're gonna share a screen for those watching. See if we can see that. That's the right website, right?
I can't see. Yep, that's it. That's the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Let me see.
definitely encourage people to go out, check it out, reach out if you have any questions about anything. If you're looking for something specific, we've got a lot of good agents out there that can then go to work for you and find it. So
Let's just say you're looking for some good land for hunting, that may have a little creek or something going through it, and forested areas and some crops, and so you could kind of look for something like that then, couldn't you?
oh yeah, I know we've got we take all of our buyers, what they're looking for, put it into our database. We're always looking all the time. A lot of times we have stuff that comes up that doesn't even make it to the market. Maybe they don't want to list it for whatever reason. So it's always good to know what you're looking for, because it's probably going to be a lot easier for us to find it than for you to find it on your own, especially in this market where things are pretty hot. Something with a good creek running through it, a little income, is not going to last very long in this current market. So yeah, we can definitely go to work for you and find you what you're looking for. Sometimes it takes a little time for the right property to come along, but we're always looking all the time. So I would definitely encourage anybody that's something that they're looking for to reach out, get connected with an agent, and have that discussion, let them know exactly what you're looking for, what your budget is, what area, and let them go to work for you. Specifically, I deal mostly just Western Kansas out here, anything pretty much in the Western half of the state. Be happy to help anybody out. So, but again, we've got agents all across the Midwest here.
So do you mostly listings just in the United States then, isn't it?
Yes. Yep. In the US, we're, I think, in every state through the Midwest besides North Dakota, and I guess Texas we're not down in Texas yet, but pretty much every other state through the Midwest there we're in at this point. So, like I say, started in 2014 and been the fastest growing land brokerage in the Midwest since that time. So we exploded throughout there pretty quick. I think we've got, close to 110 agents now across the Midwest right now. So, if you're looking in one of those states, we've got somebody that can help you.
Yeah, that sounds good for anybody that wants to, find a property. It's nice to have your own property that's worth it, and then you can do all kinds of things with it if you have the right property. And
it is incredible. It's something, even as a kid, I would say, hunting really created that desire for me to own land, myself, just because I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to have any restrictions or have anybody telling me what I couldn't do. So, that was definitely a major goal for me and something I was able to accomplish, here in recent years. And, it's just incredible when you step on a piece of property that's yours. It's just a feeling like you can't describe to anybody else. And, you can do whatever you want, wherever you want to plant food plots, you put in water, you have all the say. So stuff I hunted before, I've been very fortunate. I've had good access from some good landowners to let me hunt some really nice spots. But at the end of the day, I'm still, I can't do it unless they approve it. And a lot of times they'd run cows in certain places, or, my season would be up kind of almost the end of November when they threw the cattle in, or other spots where the cattle are summering out there and you're waiting for them to come out and get in. And, and I know I've killed deer around cows before. It's definitely doable. I'm not saying that it's not, but the problem, I don't think deer hate cattle, but cattle take down all the resources that the deer want too. So once they knock all the cover down and eat all the food, there's not much left for the deer to be in there either. So just things like that, when you own your own, you have full control over everything that's going on out there. And it's just it's pretty incredible feeling. So.
Yeah. And if you get the right property, you can make money by, having guided hunts and stuff like that. You can manage the property if you have enough land. You can manage the size of the herd, the quality of the deer, and
Exactly.
you can do all that, so you can get all these nice bucks in there. And that place I hunt, it's like, well, okay, if you don't shoot it, somebody else might.
Yeah,
there is a lot
of
property next
like
door is that way. And we've been in some properties where if it's a deer, you might as well shoot it, because come rifle season, if it's a deer, they shoot it. They don't care how big or small it is.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to let something pass, to let it grow up, because it ain't growing up, because it's probably going to get shot in the next rifle season. And here in Nebraska, we run about 10 days in November, the second week in November. Archery starts September 1st through December 31st, and muzzleloaders the whole month of December. So it's it's kind of nice.
That's what I always tell people. And, I tell my friends and people that I, have conversations about, is you got to kind of hunt your hunt. What you're aiming for is going to be dictated by what state are you in? What are the regulations? What are your neighbors like? The neighborhood makes a big difference. Out here, I'm fortunate. I'm in a pretty good neighborhood. We're kind of on the same page. We like to get stuff to 5+ years old before we consider it, a target buck. Western Kansas, we're pretty lucky out here. We've got a pretty good buck to doe ratio. The ruts are very strong out here. So, we are able to maybe do some things out here that somebody in, Nebraska or Missouri or Michigan or somewhere wouldn't be able to do. I know when I first started with Midwest, I was in Kansas City at the time, working Northwest Missouri, and I had hunted out of Northwest Missouri quite a bit. Prior to, in my time.
To go buy a truck.
My wife stopped in. She's getting ready to head out.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah,
okay. No worries. But I was just saying, I had hunted Northwest Missouri quite a bit too in my time in Kansas City there. And Missouri's the same as Nebraska. They've got their rifle season right during the middle of November. And, every tree has an orange guy in it almost, it seems like. And I always tell people, I don't know how any deer make it through that deer season sometimes, but they do, obviously. But, it's almost like a real life minesweeper out there, where you just wonder what bomb those deer are going to step on at some point, because there's an orange guy sitting in a lot of trees. If you go driving down the highway, you can see him. So, but that does make it difficult to have that older age class of deer. And I don't blame anybody for shooting, whatever deer is going to make them happy. You gotta hunt your hunt and shoot what makes you happy. And that's all that matters. But, if you are wanting to hold out for that older age class of deer, that is going to make that more difficult when there's lots of, 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds getting shot every, middle of November running around during the rut. So it just, it's not conducive to having that higher age class unless you're in a neighborhood where everybody's kind of on the same page. That's kind of your only hope at that point. So,
yeah, and it's just all depends, the property you're on, and what's going on. And when you have so few actually going through during the daylight, you can't be real picky sometimes. You've got to go through, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna shoot the does, because they're on the cameras in the property. I was catching 2 bucks on all the cameras, middle of the night. And then finally one day I did catch a third buck. But a lot of does going through at night, but there wasn't that many bucks coming through. And I had cameras out there, the whole season and till February, and I did finally catch it a couple, one day in the morning and at night. It was there during the day, at the spot I think is probably the best. Worst place to get a tree stand in, but the best spot, I think.
Sure.
But,
Yeah. Yep. Just got to hunt your hunt and kill what makes you happy. So that's what, that's the way it is. So.
Well, and I tell a lot of new, bow hunters, the first year that comes by, shoot it. I told my daughter when it's like the first year comes by, shoot it. Now, after that, let's talk about letting the fawns walk. Well, she had a doe and a fawn come in and she let the fawn go and she took the doe. But after your first year, then let's let the fawns go. And for the longest time, when I was hunting, it's like I had no clue how to tell if it was a fawn or a doe or nothing. I couldn't tell. I didn't know. And you watch all these hunting shows and they're just showing you them killing these nice, great, big, huge rack bucks and stuff. And one of them one time made a mistake and actually taught something. It's like, whoa, one time they taught something, how to tell if it's a fawn or an adult. And you look at the nose to the back of the head and the eyes. And if the nose, from the eyes to the nose is longer than the eyes to the back of the head, and it's an adult. You're like, oh, okay. Well, nobody ever said anything. None of the things I've seen, nobody said how to tell if it's an adult or a fawn. They talk about, the back starting to sway on the really old bucks and stuff. It's like, well, okay, you got to find one first.
Yeah, that's the problem with some of the, and I like watching those shows too. It's fun to see big deer and big deer get killed and all of that. But, it's not practical for all people. That's not your average deer hunter on most of those shows. You can't compete with that. And they're playing on a different level than what we are most of the time, for most people. And so you got to understand that. But yeah, it'd be nice if there was a little bit more education sometimes. And I think they're getting better about it. There's a lot of YouTube shows and stuff out there that they're doing because, the episodes online or on the TV are 30 minutes and they're really about 20 minutes by the time you take out all the commercials and everything.
Right.
So you only have 20 minutes to show all your content and you don't really have much time to dive into the, educational side of things. But they've all got their own separate channels, YouTube, everything like that now. And on there, they've got unlimited time. They can put as much content as you want. So
Right.
I would point people to those type of situations where, if there's a show or somebody you like, they probably have a YouTube channel out there where you can really go and they're getting into the analytic hunting strategy, food plot strategy, all of that type of stuff, which is pretty cool to see because, that's going on behind the scenes. But, it's good to get that content because that's honestly the stuff that I care more about than watching them kill the deer. I mean, I like watching them kill the deer too, but I crave more of the educational content that you can find on YouTube than just the hunt that they show on TV. So,
yeah. And watching some of those, it just kind of drives me crazy on how bad their form is and their shooting style and everything. You'll see them drawn across their chest, trying to really force it and then bring it up and, all that movement. Yeah, I always tell my archers when I get a new archer in here, if you can't slowly draw the bow, you're drawing too much weight. It's not about the weight, it's about placement. You can easily kill a deer at 52 pounds. My first deer I was at 52 pounds and a great big old heavy aluminum arrow with 145 grain tip, and it was 40 yards away and I was 20 feet up in a tree and that arrow almost went clean through. Shot placement.
As long as they're close enough, it doesn't matter, and you hit them right, it doesn't matter. So
yeah, you can stay off those shoulder blades and you're generally pretty good.
yeah, crazy with some of the broadheads and stuff they have nowadays though. I mean, even if you it's pretty impressive with some of the technology that's out right now and how fast these bows are and the broadheads, what they'll cut through and stuff. So it's definitely come a long ways. But yeah, generally I wouldn't want to, not really looking to hit them in the shoulder, but sometimes it happens.
Well, with the right broadhead, as long as you don't hit that big bone in the middle of the shoulder blade,
Mhm.
yeah, I blow through them no problem.
Sure. Yep.
I shoot a Muzzy 3-blade
Gotcha.
100 grain, and I've shattered bones with it. And in fact, I actually when I had my archery store after work, I was trying to shoot my broadheads. I set up a broadhead target because you can't shoot a regular backstop with broadheads; it just tears them up.
Mhm.
And I probably shouldn't have been doing it, but I missed. I hit the concrete wall behind, above the target. That broadhead stuck into the concrete block. It cracked the insert and the shaft back about an inch. The shaft was laying on the ground. The broadhead was stuck in the concrete block.
Wow. Yeah, it's pretty
I
impressive.
still use that broadhead. It did
Yep.
not hurt that broadhead a bit.
There you
It went
go.
into the block, concrete block enough to stick into the block.
Wow. Yeah, it's some of them they're shooting through like sheet metal and stuff with them to prove how. I mean, it's impressive, what's out there. And I don't know. I've gone back and forth between expandables and fixed blade. I like both for different reasons. But I got a new bow here a couple years ago. I stuck with that bear that I originally got back in 2010 or 11. And I killed a lot of deer with it for a lot of years, but I just decided to update here a couple years ago and updated to a Matthews VXR. I just heard a lot about them and I shot them and I just really liked how smooth and, just really liked the feel for me. And went to some micro diameter arrows and, with some inserts. And then when I did that, I switched back to expandable because I thought the speed and weight of those arrows would more than offset, the reason I switched away from expandables with my old bow was because I didn't like the penetration I was getting. I was killing deer and I was hitting him in the heart, but I wasn't getting pass throughs. And I was like, I'm playing with fire here. One of these times this isn't going to work. And then it did. I felt like I hit a deer pretty good actually. And what I think happened was the arrow deflected and stayed high instead of driving down through the deer like it should have, because it was a pretty short range shot and I was mostly shooting down. And I mean, you could see the arrow hit, the knock, everything. And I was just like, that was kind of my go-to of, well, I'm switching to a fixed blade, and I did that. But then once I upgraded the bows, I went back to expandable mostly because I couldn't get I just wasn't confident enough in the fixed as the expandables do. So it was more of like a confidence. I know that you can do it and I know there's ways to do it. But when I'd go out in the backyard and practice, I was not getting the same level of accuracy. So then, you got to be confident in your, and I feel pretty confident in the setup I've got now. And if you hit them just right, you're going to be fine either way. So that's kind of the way it works.
Yeah. Well, and fixed blades are good at the slower speeds. As the bows got faster and faster and faster, fixed blades got harder and harder to control. So that's when you start getting the higher speeds. That's when the mechanicals, it's almost, you got to go to a mechanical of some kind and find a good quality mechanical. And I had some guys on from Thunderhead Broadheads and looking at some of the stuff they had, man, they've got some pretty wicked looking stuff. And that's just one thing that you got to look at. If you can't control your broadheads, I try to set my broadheads up depending on which shaft I'm using, but I want that broadhead to be able to hit the X-ring.
To hit
If I
what?
can't,
Sorry.
I want the broadhead to hit the X-ring. I'm shooting in a single spot. Or a 5-spot. I want to be able to hit that X-ring. And on the worst, I'm just missing it. It's I want them to guide in there. I want to be in there and shooting that tight a group with them. And if I can't do that, then you have to tune them and stuff like that. You go to mechanicals, and it helps on them. They're not going to shoot exactly like field tips because they're actually a little bit longer. So, but at hunting range, you're probably not going to see any difference. You may have to sight in a little bit, maybe a little bit different. I know on my hunting bow, it's a 2001 PSE Carrera, my broadheads do not hit the same place as my field tips. They're off by a couple inches. off the side and down, I think it is. But all my broadheads hit in the same spot. So my bow is set up to shoot my broadheads. When I shoot field tips out of it, it
Mhm.
doesn't hit where I'm aiming, but I don't
Mhm.
care because I know the
Mhm.
broadheads do.
Yep. Yeah, that's what you got to do. And that's what it boiled down to again, just the accuracy of the field tips with this faster bow, and or not the field tips, the accuracy of the expandables with the fixed blades. They weren't off by a ton, but they seemed to be inconsistent by how they were off. And then also they I don't know, it's off by enough to where you're like, I don't want to be guessing, on where I'm shooting or trying to aim high and right or whatever. I just kind of want to know where I'm going to hit. And if I miss, it's user error. It's not, equipment error. So
Right.
anyway, that's kind of what it boiled down to again. And I think I could hit a shoulder with this setup, and I might break an expandable blade off. Maybe I don't know if it would or not, but I think it would rip in there and get in deep enough and still do what it needs to do. So I feel pretty confident in it. So
Well, when you're using a mechanical, you try to stay off the shoulder blade anyway. So, but you got ribs to hit,
mhm,
So if you hit a rib, with the muzzies I use, if I hit a rib dead on, it's just going to shatter the rib and just keep going through.
mhm,
I've still gotten pass throughs and hitting major bones.
mhm.
And I know I was shooting mine one time before I knew how to set up a bow. I was shooting way too long a draw length, and I shot and I heard the string hit my jacket. So I was like, okay, this is going to go somewhere weird. And it did. It actually hit it in the thigh bone, on the back thigh bone, completely shattered it and still passed through.
Wow,
And, of course, it didn't go very far, because it didn't have a leg to really stand on.
for
It
sure.
had three left, but still, they're not, adapt to walking on one back leg and two front legs.
Mhm.
And it just hit dead center, and you can see right where that point of that muzzy hit that and shattered it. I've hit other bones and shattered them as well.
Did the
And
deer did the deer expire without a follow up, or did you have to put a follow up shot on it?
I couldn't put a follow up because where it laid down, there's a tree between me and it. So I
Gotcha.
couldn't get to the vitals. So I just had to sit there until, finally that, because I couldn't start getting down, because then it would try to get up and run.
Sure.
And
So it was
then,
enough though for it to expire and bleed
right.
out.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It got
So
an artery in the back. So,
sure.
so it wasn't like it just hobbled off. Otherwise, I got no one. But,
Sure.
my thought is if I have more arrows and it's within shooting range, I'm going to stick an arrow in it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Once,
Anytime you can get another arrow in it, you do. So
yeah. And sometimes you make them bad shots and you're luck out and catch an artery. And
mhm. It
I know that
happens.
one time I always, when I'd practice, I would practice close my left eye. I shoot right-handed, so close the left eye when I'm practicing, but I hunt with them, both of them open. And as you get older, you don't realize it, but you start getting a cataract form, and your right eye is not as clear as it was. Well, I see two sets of pins,
Gotcha.
and the right eye is clear set of pins, the left eye is dim set of pins. Over the years, my mind I just ignore the dimmer ones. They just don't even exist to me. I don't even notice them anymore. And with the right eye blurry, the left eye clear, guess what my mind picked up? The left eye on the pins.
Yeah.
And I shot, I know that pin was right on that kill zone when I shot. And when we finally recovered it, I'd hit the artery in the back hip. And I'm like, I know that was not where I shot, because it wasn't like running or nothing. It was just kind of
Mhm.
walking slowly, and I wasn't that far away. So I went down to the range, like I normally do, target shoot, nail it right where it's supposed to be. Open up both eyes. I missed by about, well, I was shooting it on 5 spot, the right side target, and I completely missed the paper to the left at 20 yards. I was off by that much.
Wow.
And that's the wrong eye picking up the pins. So then I was out, and I'm blinking my left eye to try and force me to pick up the right pin. And then I always wear a baseball cap. And then I noticed one time I had a hooded sweatshirt on. I turned my head and it blocked my left eye. I was like, that's the key. when I hunt, I'll have a hooded sweatshirt on. And when I turn my head, my left eye is blocked, so I can't see the pins with my left eye. I can only see with the right eye. And
Gotcha.
problem solved. There's a
Yeah.
way around it. And, that's kind of the fun things, figure out how to get around some of the problems you have.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have that. I guess if it came down to it, you could always shut your left eye too, if that's what you had.
Yeah.
But but I can understand why you want to have both of them open too. But
Yeah.
you're essentially
You can,
blocking it anyway. So
yeah. But I just, when I hunt, for some reason I have both eyes open. When I target, I'm focused on, blocking everything out. And nice thing about having both eyes open is you can see things going on.
yep,
Where if you close your eyes, all you're seeing is what's through your sight. So
yep,
you
exactly.
can't really pick up, okay, now there's a tree showing up. I won't see it with my right eye, but left eye, I can see that there's a tree there. And then when I draw back, of course, that's when it gets blocked. Because until
Mhm.
then, I haven't blocked my left eye, but as once I'm full drawing my anchor point, then now I block that left eye. And there's ways around it.
For
You
sure.
know,
Just got to figure out what works for you. So
yeah, yeah. That's, you always got to have little problems that you got to solve. And sometimes solving a problem for somebody is kind of the fun part.
yeah.
Figuring
Oh
out
yeah.
how to solve that problem. And um, here in Nebraska, they have the Missouri River Outdoor Expo, and just that was last weekend. And we had a problem that we were solving up there. The one lady from Game Parks that runs it, I've known her for almost 30 years now. But we're doing what they call aerial archery, which is a big foam disc that you launch and then you shoot at it with your recurve bows, and you have a big ball on the end of it and hit them. And this young lady, well, I couldn't find her, she's like in her 30s. She was missing from about the wrist forward on her left hand. She was interested in archery. So Christy goes over and grabs an arm guard, sticks it on there, take another arm guard, wraps it around the bow, and she's over shooting a bow.
Hmm.
They had over there shooting a bow. And then she hooked him up with Matt Stutzman, which is the armless archer. He has no arms. And so he hooked up with somebody else to get her going. But hey,
Awesome.
there's nothing that should stop you.
Oh yeah.
If you don't
There's
have
always,
arms or legs, that might be a little difficult. But if you
yeah.
have two legs, or one leg and an arm or something, there's always a way that you can shoot.
Oh yeah. I see
And
some guys doing some pretty impressive stuff with just their legs. So,
yeah,
that takes some quite an athletic feat sometimes too, to do that. I'm not sure everybody could do that, but if you want to bad enough, I suppose you're going to figure out
yeah.
a way. So,
Well, and I'll have Matt on the podcast one of these days here coming up soon. So, if you're listening, make sure you stay tuned, and because I know that'd be an interesting story to talk to him. I made for
for
the first
sure.
time. I'd seen a video of him shooting in the Paralympics, and then last year at the Outdoor Expo, he was there, and I met him for the first time, and then he was up there again this year, and I talked to him again, and so we'll get him on here one of these days and talk with him. It'll be interesting story, I'm sure of that.
For sure. Yeah. Sounds
But
like it.
so back to you, which is really why we're on here, is to talk to you about your archery. What do you have any other plans other than just maybe hunting? Are you going to do any target shooting, or where you plan on taking it?
I mean, I pretty much target shoot to hunt. I mean, I enjoy target shooting in the backyard, and I am, sometimes I am a guy that I have to force myself, but like it's like, oh, it's that time of year, you need to start shooting, time gets away from you, and so then I'll try to get out in mornings, evenings when it's cool and shoot, because I do want to make sure that I am, when I'm going to the field, I'm confident and I feel good about it. I'm not just walking out there and don't shoot. But no, I mean, I shoot to hunt pretty much. Like I would probably shoot sparingly if I wasn't a hunter. So more or less, I do what I got to do to get ready for season. And then, once I'm out there, I mean, that's why I target shoot. So kind of really though, the main goal at this point is just continuing to work with the girls and my wife and kind of get them rolling and seeing if
Yeah.
maybe that will create, that'll be another reason for me to get fired up about it and do it more often. But I don't do it competitively or anything like that. I do enjoy, like, if you can get a group of buddies together and go out and shoot, just, the camaraderie just makes it more fun than shooting by yourself in the backyard.
Right.
But that's mostly what I do, is shoot by myself in the backyard, getting ready for season. I mean, if I can go fling, 12, 15 arrows in the morning and then do it again in the evening, that's kind of how I get prepped and ready for the season. So try not to shoot. I really don't like shooting too many times at once, because I just feel like it's not realistic for when you're hunting. I mean, really, you're pulling back and getting one shot, so I try to make it as realistic as possible, where, your first shot, let's see if you're going to kill the animal or not. And then, you get into form. You need to do it. You need to get that form down and get used to it, find your anchor point, going through it. So that way, when you get out in the field, it's second nature to you. But, at the same time, I'm not out there shooting 50 times or something like that either. So.
Yeah, I kind of like you. I shoot spots to develop my skill, to know that if I put my pin, I can hit what I'm aiming at.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go to 3D shoots and develop my skill of judging yardages. Because you go to 3D shoot, where you hit on the deer, on the targets, is not where you're going to shoot a real animal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because they might have that low target, but if you aim at that target, that same spot when you're hunting, you're not going to have a good shot. You may not even completely hit the heart. Depending on the angle, you might have a bottom exit, which means no blood trail. So where you shoot, but the idea of picking your spot, which I failed to do a couple times, I drew back and shot at this deer and I completely missed it. I don't know how I missed it. So I had a field tip with me. So I picked out a leaf and I hit the leaf. And then I figured, you know what? I just pointed the bow and shot. I forgot to aim.
Mm-hmm.
It happens, you forget to aim, and that's what's nice about
happens.
the 3 is you pick that spot, say, okay, here's where I'm going to shoot it. That's what I'm going to shoot. And
well, and then you got to factor other things into it too. In a hunting scenario, I mean, how far away is the animal? Is it going to duck? Things of that nature. Everybody's a little different with what they do there. Personally, I don't like taking shots over 30 yards at an animal, just because I don't want to predict whether or not they're gonna duck. At 30 with a fast bow, you hope that most times if you aim hard, you're going to get the lungs if they do duck a little bit, but when you start getting outside 40 and 50 yards, I mean, you really gotta aim low almost, and anticipating a duck, but sometimes they don't duck. So, I mean, but that's far enough out that most of the time, talk to people, they're going to usually duck to some degree, 40 plus yards. And so how much, I guess I don't know. That's to each their own at that point. So
I know my first deer was 40 yards away. One deer I shot, my second shot on it was 30. Other than that, I'm not sure if I've had many at 20. I've had more of them at 10, 15 than I have at 20. And I've had some so close, it's like, okay, I can't shoot you. You're walking underneath my tree stand. There's I can't get a good shot on it. And
most of my shots have been inside of 15 yards. I've shot a few at 30, 25. But yeah, those are actually more rare. Most of the time I've had very close range shots. I set up to, to try to create scenarios where I'm getting close range shots, and they're, 10, 15 yard shots most of the time, to be honest with you. That is one thing I've thought about, maybe getting into a recurve and shooting a little bit, just because it would be cool to kill a deer with a recurve. And most of my shot opportunities are close enough to where that would be feasible to do. So, but then you're going to have to get out there and practice more. And like you said earlier, I mean, I'd have to feel confident and comfortable that I could kill the thing with the recurve. So time is kind of my issue right now with something like that. So
yeah, we all have those time problems.
yes, exactly.
No matter what's going on. And I retired a couple years ago, and I just recently, here about 3 weeks ago, I got offered a job I couldn't refuse. So I went back and I'm working. So now, I got that 40-hour-a-week job, and it's about 40-minute drive to and from work, and so but it's gonna give me a little extra money for my toys and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, you gotta, I don't know, you gotta do it. But yeah, that creates the time crunch for sure, so that's
Yeah.
what I'm dealing with between work and kids activities and all of that stuff. There's it's definitely hard, and that's where shooting the bow even gets more difficult, even the compound, but that's where I say I gotta really, not force myself. I don't know if that's the right, but it's more like remember, oh, hey, you need season's coming up. It comes fast and you're not ready for it. And so I really gotta, it needs to be on my mind to get out and shoot in the mornings and evenings when I do have a little bit of time. And so that's the older you get, sometimes that can be difficult. So
Yeah. Well, the mornings now is going to be a little tough because I start work at 7, so I can get off earlier. That way I can leave 3:30, 4 o'clock, depending on, what's going on. And it's about a 40-minute drive home. So, leave today at just about 4 and get home just in time to start the podcast.
Yep, exactly.
I got down and sat down and started it, and a couple of minutes later we're going.
Yep. Right now you almost have enough time to slip out after work for deer hunting, but it won't be long, and you won't have time for that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of nice in the early season. You can sneak some evening hunts in if you can get home quick and get out there, and they're not usually moving too early this time of year. So, but that won't even be an option here shortly. So
No. Well, and I could, if I wanted to leave earlier one day, I could, just say, hey, I want to leave at 3 o'clock today, and
sure.
okay. So I generally get more of my 40 in anyway. So I don't have vacation because I'm contractor. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like they wanted you, so you're probably pretty okay.
Yeah. I have a big old project that we're working on, and so it's going to take a while. Just gathering information is going to take a while. So I know you do a lot of hunting. What's been your most challenging hunt you've had so far?
I mean, from a bow perspective, I would say just whitetails here in the Midwest. I mean, I generally at this point am picking out a deer or two that I'm hunting, usually one deer at first, and then there's a backup plan or something, so I think every deer is their own challenge. Some are easier than others, obviously, but I did shoot a deer back in 2016 that I was getting him on camera all the time, but I just could never get eyes on him. The year before, he broke off his main beam just outside the brow tine, so he kind of got the pass that year. But then the next year, he grew back out, and he was a little bigger than he was the year before. And so I hunted him really hard, actually. And that was when I was living in Kansas City too. So and this deer was out in Western Kansas. So I was going 4 hours round trip to hunt him. And I was, at that point in time, I was working for a, corporation there in Kansas City. And so I was like your standard Monday through Friday job. And I would save a lot of my vacation time for, November basically. And I was taking off Fridays and Mondays. And I would drive back, I would work for 3 days, and then I would be back hunting him for 4 days. But, a lot of times you go back and the winds aren't right. And, Western Kansas, we get a lot of wind out here, and winds can be crazy. And so there was several times with that deer, I just had to I couldn't hunt here. I'm driving all the way out, and there were days where I couldn't even sit for him. But I think no, that was a different deer. That's popping in my head there, but no. So, but I was hunting him hard when I could with the winds. Got back for one weekend, and it was Veterans Day that I was out in the stand, and it was, I think it was in the 80s. It was hot, and I had hunted that morning, and I was putting up a decoy. I actually hunt over decoys quite a bit out here, and there was just a deep buck growl grunt behind me, and came up. I was crawling up into my stand, and eventually he walked off downwind. I think, at the time I was confident it was him. I don't know any other deer that could have made that deep of a grunt out in that area. And so I got set up, and at about noon, my mind was getting the best of me. I had to get down and check my trail camera that I had right there just to see, because I'd never even seen this deer in person yet at that point in time. Well, I went and I ran up to the truck, checked the trail camera, and that buck was on camera 4 different times that night throughout the night. And so I was more confident than ever that was him. He was just running up and down that creek looking for does, and got back in the stand, and I was kind of in a bad mood because it was hot, and just wasn't having luck, and I hadn't even seen him yet, and I'd hunted quite a few times for him at that point. And I generally do all day sits during November, especially when I was coming all the way back from that far away. I'm sitting all day, so those can be some long sits, and so, but I got up at 1:30 and was going to look around. I'm like, I might as well look around. It's hot, I'm sweating, kind of in a bitter attitude, and go to reach for my binoculars, and here he's actually walking at me down the trail, and he sees me reach for my binoculars, and we just kind of had a 1 or 2 minute standoff where I'm staring at him and he's staring at me. But right before I left to go check that trail camera card, I actually took the decoy and I put it right underneath the base of my tree, because the wind was actually switched to my back, and I was like, well, but it'll fly over me, but I'm going to put him right at the base of my tree, so he'll circle right out in front. And sure enough, I'm glad I did that, because we had to stare off for probably a minute or two, but then he looked and saw that decoy, and then he flicked his tail and he came right in. I shot him at 2 yards from the base of my tree, and that's my biggest buck to date as well. And that was the only time I've ever seen the deer. I didn't have any daylight pictures of the deer, nothing. So that one was definitely, that was a good test right there for sure.
Yeah. That's something when it catches you moving and still comes in.
Yeah. You don't get away with it too often, but the fact that I had put that decoy right under the base of my tree was my saving grace on that one, because if I'd even had it out away from the tree, it wouldn't have worked. It was the fact that it was just close enough and he was right there, and if it wasn't for that, I never would have got away with it. So
yeah, he probably seen you move it, and then you froze, and then now he's looking at the doe, and it's like, well, okay, I'm gonna come in and get some of the doe.
It was a buck decoy, actually.
Buck decoy. Okay.
I only generally hunt with a buck decoy out here. I do have a doe that I use from time to time during the rut. If I'm trying to I'll usually use a buck and a doe. Sometimes, I will use the doe sometimes if I do a lot of low hanging tree stands out here, because we got a lot of locust trees and goofy trees. And so sometimes I'll just want something out there to take focus off of me, because I am sitting so low. And if I don't want something aggressive, it's not right time of year, I don't want to use a buck, then that's what I'll use the doe for. So, but outside of that, during November, late October, out here in Western Kansas, those buck decoys can just be crazy good, because like I said, we do have such a good buck to doe ratio out here, and the bucks out here are so aggressive. So I've shot a lot of my bucks with a buck decoy.
Yeah, when you have that, having the buck, then they're going to want to come in and chase them off, and
Exactly.
see how that would be really good when you have a high buck to doe ratio.
Yep. And it's fun hunting. The only problem with it, is if you don't get to those bucks before mid-November, a lot of them aren't carrying around all their points, by that point, just because they are so aggressive. They bust up real easy. It's hard to find an intact buck by late November out here, and in some places. So at least breaking off something. So
yeah. Yeah, that's Um, always the challenge when you have a lot of aggressive bucks, they're going to get their antlers broken.
Exactly. Yep. It's a good problem to have, but if you're,
Yeah.
you know, it's always bad. It's kind of nice when you shoot them and they're not all busted up. That's for sure. We've had it. It's saved quite a few deer out here, over the years that got too broken up, and we didn't want to, we let him go another year. Just like I said, that was kind of his case the year before, where he broke off his main beam and got the pass that year. So it helped him get through, and he was bigger the next year. So I guess it worked out.
Yeah, they're going to get bigger and bigger to a point, and then they're going to start getting, a little not as good at racks, and you can
Yep.
see them getting a little taller, taller, and taller, and then they start getting fatter and fatter, a little shorter, and
Hmm.
then and
Yep.
you
I've
know,
got one on camera right now. He's got to be about the oldest deer I've ever seen. You look at his body and I've never seen anything like him. He's just kind of round, and he just looks like a grandpa buck. I mean, he just
yeah,
is kind of pudgy and round, and his rack, you can tell, it's actually not, it's not terrible, but you can tell back in his day, he probably was a lot better than what he is right now. It's weird to look at him because you hardly see deer get to that age. Like I would love to know how old this deer is. I mean, I think he could be pushing double digits. That's how old I think he is. He just looks like something I've never seen before.
yeah. The only way to find out is to shoot it and look at the
Yeah.
teeth.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with Kansas being a buck state, you don't always want to put your tag on that deer. Sometimes, it is what it is, but usually we generally have bigger deer to go after. And so you're trying, you don't want to kill it. It's unfortunate, but if you can find a buddy or somebody that's just wanting to get out and they don't, or, find somebody that doesn't have a spot and they want to go kill him, sometimes you can leverage that opportunity. But for
Yeah,
me personally, I'll have 2 or 3 bigger deer to go chase around, and so I probably wouldn't kill him. But he'd also be a great buck for a kid, or
oh yeah.
wife or whatever. So
I wonder if you can keep track of where he goes. If he just dies of old age, you can find his rack.
he might. He's been a pretty good homebody on the farm. So wouldn't be, I didn't know if he would make it through last year. I mean, as he just looked rough, and we had pretty cold winter out here. And I mean,
Yeah,
his rack was all busted up. I mean, it was busted down to just nubs sticking out on each side last year. And so I mean, I didn't know if he'd make it or not. I mean, he's definitely getting to that age where he could very easily die of old age some winter. So
yeah, yeah. It'd be interesting to, if you do get a chance to age it, to see how old that was.
oh yeah, if we do, and we've got some different people too, we might try to get on him. So if we do, I would definitely have to send his teeth in and get the age done on him. I've been doing that lately with several of the bucks that I've been shooting, just because it is kind of interesting to know how old they were versus what you thought. Because I mean, realistically, unless you've got multiple years of history with the deer from a young age, you don't really know how old they are unless you send their teeth in. I mean,
Yeah,
deer are like people, some of them mature faster and get bigger, and they're just like us. So unless you've got that history, you don't really know.
yeah. You don't know when you catch them on camera next year. If you've had them on camera for a few years, then you know that's the same one. But
Exactly.
I've seen charts. You look at the chart, look at their teeth, and it'll tell you about basically how old they are. Because the older they
Hmm.
get, then less and less teeth they have, and eventually they don't have enough teeth to chew anything. So then, they're going to basically starve. And at that
Hmm.
point, you might as well kill it and at least get something out of it. Now,
Hmm.
I don't know how well what the meat would be like, but um, there's always ways of fixing venison to make it taste good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, I've ate some pretty old bucks that people would tell you would be terrible. And I've always thought they tasted just fine if you cook them right. And what you're cooking. I killed one a few years ago that aged out to 8.5. And I ate his back straps and they tasted just fine. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah, it's just all in how you fix it. That's the thing I learned a long time ago is with venison. deer meat is one of those that you do not want to overcook.
Exactly.
Overcooked, it's terrible. It's almost be better to be, on the rare side than the well side.
Oh yeah,
I
for
think more
sure.
in medium rare is it's overcooked, and
I
just cook them
agree. Yep.
slow. Don't cook them on high heat because you're gonna overcook them. And
Yeah, I enjoy them. I haven't had any issue with the older bucks, cooking up their back straps and things like that. And it's always been good. I tend to keep it more on the medium rare side of things as well. And also I tell people too, like, I don't know, people say it's gamey. I don't think it's gamey. I don't think there is such a thing as gamey. I think that it's venison and it's not beef. And, just like pork doesn't taste like beef and elk doesn't
right,
taste like beef. They just all kind of have their own flavor. I think they've kind of created this word to mean that it's not beef. But at the end of the day, as long as you understand it's going to taste a little different than beef, but if it's cooked right, it's going to be really good. And if you
right,
that's the mental side of it, I don't know. We don't have any issue getting rid of our deer around here. So
yeah.
never
Well, and part of it too is the fat on a deer smells nasty when you're cooking it and tastes nasty when you're cooking it. So if
hmm
you haven't removed all the fat from it, and the tendons and the sinew and stuff like that, if you
Yep,
haven't removed all that, that's going to give you a bad flavor.
for sure. Yep.
Like
Your
the
fat
difference between,
definitely.
yeah, the difference between the ground that I grind up versus the ground that you get from the butcher is not even the same.
Yeah.
You can smell the difference when you're cooking them because they have some fat, because they don't trim all the fat off. There's some fat in it. So you can smell it when you're cooking it and cause taste it. And
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this though, too. I mean, I still think mentally it's in people's heads a lot because I've had people say, I would never eat deer and, I've never had it and I would never eat it. It's just nasty and this and that. And I don't really want to tell them, but they've had deer a lot at my house. They just didn't realize they were eating it because we don't, I mean, all of our ground meat and a lot of the meat we're using is venison and they eat it up and don't ask any questions. So, like I said, they might think that they don't like deer, but they went back for seconds a lot of times. So, it is what it is.
yeah, I was guessing, and then it's like, oh man, this is good. What is it? It's
Yeah.
deer. Oh no, oh nasty. It's like, you just said you liked it.
Yeah.
So
It's more mental for most people than anything, truly. If it's cooked right,
yeah,
it's going to be more mental than anything. So,
it's meat. You eat
exactly.
snakes, you eat gators, you eat fish, you eat deer. Um, some will eat coons and all
Oh,
kinds
yeah.
of things. So it's meat. As long as it's not spoiled,
hmm
or has any parasites or something in it. Some you might have to cook a little bit more
hmm
to make sure you get all the parasites, in them. But nice thing about eating deer is there's no growth hormones in it. There's no
hmm
antibiotics. There's no additives in it. It's pure organic meat.
hmm
You have to pay extra to get a cow that's organic like that
Exactly.
because they inject them with all these chemicals and stuff, keep from getting diseases. And just get a buffalo. They don't have the problems that cows do.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, people pay a lot of money for organic meat and, with game meat, you can go out and get some of the best, cleanest, highest protein levels game meat most of the time is, and, and it's essentially free, outside of the cost of a tag. And then it's your hobby too, I mean, a lot of
Right.
people will tell you, well, yeah, but you pay a lot of money. It's your hobby and this and that. I'm like, yeah, but you golf and pay a lot of money and you don't get to come home with a bunch of meat, at the end of it. So, yeah, it's my hobby and it's what I do, but it's kind of a nice perk that you fill your freezer, every year with
Right.
organic meat, so definitely a perk for sure. And, last time I was at the grocery store, meat prices were pretty high. So it's kind of nice to be able to offset that some with stuff that you were able to get yourself. So,
Yeah. And I know there for a while we had so much venison that, when I'd have beef, it's like, oh, this tastes funny. What is it? Oh yeah, that's just cow. Uh,
mhm,
you get used to it and learn how to cook it, and it's like really good. And
for
um,
sure.
the best meat I ever had was one time I took the back straps out, fired up the grill, and I threw them on the grill, and I'm cooking them. and the back straps kind of taper down. So as it gets done, I put my fork in it and I cut off the end of it and ate it. So I'm cutting off the ends as it's cooking and getting to that medium rare. So I'm putting my fork in it and cutting off and eating it right off the grill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't get better than that.
yeah. And now if you go to one of these, real high quality restaurants that, have the guy out there that checks all the food before it goes out and stuff. We went and had one of those one time. It was down in Missouri or someplace, I forget now. But I ordered a steak, medium rare, and this thing was, probably 2 inches thick. And there was a little brown on the outside, and the rest was medium rare inside. It was like perfectly cooked. I was like, man, I've never had a steak that good cooked in a restaurant, short of the one I was eating off the grill. Normally I just don't bother ordering steaks at restaurants because most time they don't cook them right anyway. They're either overcooked or they're not cooked. I know at one time I went to this restaurant, I cut into it and it was a little bit rare. So I sent it back and I said, it needs about 30 seconds more. And he's the cook. So I put it on about 30 seconds and finished cooking it. He missed the perfect cook by 30 seconds. But, other than that, you don't normally find them. We went to one restaurant, 3 times they had to cook the steak and still got it wrong. Like
Yeah,
medium rare.
I generally don't order steaks at restaurants either for that same reason. I mean, I'd rather them undercook it, I suppose, than overcook it, because once that's done, it's done. But
right.
At the same time, for the price you're paying and what you get back most of the time, it's just not worth it to me. I'd rather just do it at home. So
yeah, give me a hamburger.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about being chewy. And
yeah, exactly.
There, if you cook it well done, you're okay. If you cook it a little bit medium, the little pink inside is fine on a hamburger. But
exactly.
If it's cooked completely, it's not like it's not good to eat.
Usually I tell them medium and it comes back well done, and it just is what it is. So, but with the burger, that's not as big of a deal as it is with a steak.
Yeah. I know when we was up at the thing, that one place had lamb. I don't know what they call it. They marinated it and stuff. And the one lady was up there with us. She bought some of the stuff and I tried one of the pieces and well, it was well done. It was overcooked, but it was still good. And it wasn't like it was real hard to chew, but I think it was overdone. But, when you do something like that, you're going to cook them all well done. You're not going to have anything with any pink in it, because some people get paranoid and
sure,
they're like, they don't understand, most meats you can have a little bit of pink in them, and even pork you can have a slight amount in there.
Yeah.
You can still have a little bit in there. You don't have to cook them well done. And every time you cook them well done, it's like it's just chewy and hard, and you got to put a whole bunch of stuff on it. And I prefer them to be a little bit juicier inside. And
well, and that's the same way with like game birds too. I mean, I think, there's because of the way chicken's processed and turkey's processed at the store, you got to make sure it's cooked well done, because you don't want to risk getting sick or whatever. But when it comes to, pheasants, quail, ducks, geese, like you don't want to cook any of that completely well done either. I'm not saying you're eating it medium rare, but at the same time, you're keeping it a hair underdone to keep that juice and flavor in there too. So, because if you dry out pheasant, it's going to be like chewing on rubber, if you
right.
overcook it. So I just think game meat in general, you always need to err on the side of cooking it a little bit less than you would anything else. So
yeah, it's different the way the commercially you have to almost cook it well done. Like the chicken, because you don't know. There's salmonella in it. If you don't cook it all the way, then you can take a chance on that. And it's just so much better. And
but that's all caused by that's all caused from like the cross contamination of the way they package and
right.
everything through water. That's why it just spreads like crazy. That's why with chicken you have to do all that, because it probably is getting packaged with other stuff that has something nasty in it. So you just can't take the risk. But a pheasant that you got out of the CRP that morning you're not going to have to worry about that. So it makes it kind of nice. So
yeah, and that's why I have a garden. I grow my own veggies and stuff like that in there, because it's I don't have to worry about they're spraying the waxes on them and you get like a
Mhm.
cucumber and stuff, some of that stuff. It's like, I look at it in the store, it's like, I compost them when they look like that. I'm
Mhm.
throwing them out and you want me to buy it? I've already composted better food than that. You
Yeah.
know, you're
Yeah.
used to the good quality in tomatoes. Like if I go someplace they got tomatoes, you can put them on or don't put them on. I really don't care because they don't taste like tomatoes.
Mhm.
And you used to, they're red and ripe, and you pick them off there, and the tomatoes are red instead of being pink. And yeah,
Mhm.
it's the same thing. Learn
Oh
to
yeah.
grow crops and hunt yourself because you're always going to have food.
Exactly right.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's gonna be better.
no food in the grocery stores. Yeah, okay. I got food here I've grown and saved, and need be, you know what? I'll grab my bow or my gun and go get meat.
Exactly. It seems
You
crazy
know,
to say stuff like that, but at the same time, I mean, you look at some of the things, I'm sure, a lot of people don't think it could ever get to that point. But even during COVID, when you went and saw some of the meat shortages at grocery stores and different things, I mean, when you have supply chains get disturbed like that, if we ever see another round of that, I mean, you never know if you're yeah, maybe the only meat you'll be able to put on the table for at least a short term could be
yeah.
something you got yourself. So you don't know. I mean, I didn't think we would see what we saw with COVID, with all the shortages on everything. And, I never expected to see something like that over here in my lifetime or whatever. So you never know what you're going to run into, but it does give you a little bit of a sense of security of I can go out and provide for myself if I need to. So,
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about, archery, because you can do it where, where you may not be able to shoot a gun.
yep.
There may be some places where there's too many houses around, but yet I can shoot my bow. I can shoot my bow in my backyard. I'm a little
Hmm.
village, there's only about 168 people here, but I can go half mile down the road and shoot my guns if I want. Um,
Exactly. You can shoot
you know,
it a lot more and it's a lot cheaper, once you've got your
yeah,
setup. I mean, you can shoot the same arrows over and over and over and over again. And,
yeah.
it's just somebody that likes to shoot. Archery is definitely the ticket. It's going to be a lot cheaper than, firearm shooting targets, things
Oh
like that.
yeah.
So, but
Well,
also like with a lot of the, inner city hunts and stuff they've got going on now. I know in Kansas City, they had a lot of open hunts where you could apply for a bunch of different parks around where things are overpopulated. So, I mean, you're going to have more access with archery than
right.
you are with a firearm, no doubt about it, and places that you can hunt and get in on some of the more limited draw type stuff that are going to be archery only. So, yeah, that's definitely brings a lot to the table.
Well, and if you go around the farmers asking and tell them you're going to archery hunt, you're not going to fire them, you're going to archery hunt. And I think you're going to have a better chance of getting on some of these properties because, a farmer doesn't know me, doesn't know how I treat firearms. So they might be concerned that, okay, I might, you know, shoot the wrong direction, shoot at your house, shoot it, something not supposed to. But with archery, you don't have to worry about that because, you're far enough away. You can send that arrow, good long ways, but we're not shooting up in the air. We're shooting
Mhm.
down and we're shooting level, and they're not going to go that far.
Without a
If you,
doubt, archery is going to get you into places that you wouldn't get if you were going in there with a rifle. I mean, and a lot of times maybe you have a landowner that maybe he rifle hunts only, for a week out of the year. But if you're like, when he realizes that you're archery and you're not going to be in there when he's in there, I've seen guys get permission that way where he's like, oh, you're
yeah,
just a bow hunter. Well, that's fine. I rifle hunt out here though. You can't rifle hunt, whatever. So yeah, your odds of getting permission on somewhere, they're not as good as what they used to be places, but at the same time, you're definitely going to have better odds, but with bow than a rifle for sure.
yeah. And one thing that Nebraska changed is their archery season goes nonstop from September 1st to December 31st, including the firearm season. So you
Hmm.
can be out there with a bow during firearm season. You just have to wear orange.
Yep.
And if you're going to do that, you have to wear your orange. But then in muzzleloader season, it's the whole month of December. The muzzleloaders have to wear orange, but the archers out there at the same time don't have to wear orange.
That's odd. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
Kansas muzzleloader is actually the beginning of the season here. It kicks off at the same time as archery does, September 11th for, right after youth season there. And you do have to wear orange in Kansas during muzzleloader, but it's only for like a week there, and then it's straight archery. But you can bow hunt all the way through all the seasons. You just have to wear orange during any firearms here in Kansas, but we don't have the extended muzzleloader season like you guys do either.
Yeah.
So maybe that has something to do with it, but that still seems odd, I guess. But
Well, and it's in December too, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask the guys that came in Parks, and I was like, why is that? I'll have to ask them one of these times.
maybe it has to do with the lack of foliage and being able to I don't know, deer don't see color anyway. Some colors they do, I guess they see blue and some of those really well. So but you're going to look like more of a blob, I guess, if you're wearing just straight orange versus
Yeah.
a cam. I don't know, maybe that was the people who didn't want to wear it, at least their argument against it, but seems weird to me. But
yeah, it seems weird. I just spent the weekend with somebody from Game and Parks, so I was like, I didn't even think about asking them. I'm gonna try and get one of the Nebraska conservation officers and law enforcement officers on the podcast when I'm gonna kind of call them, and that'd be a question to ask them when they're on the podcast.
yeah, that'd be interesting. I don't know. Yeah. And maybe it has to do with, I'm sure the muzzleloader season is not as there's probably not nearly as many muzzleloader hunters out there as there is during the general firearm season either. So that's
yeah,
there's some of it as well. But yeah, that'd be interesting.
There's thousands of them during the firearm season.
For sure. Yep. I've got a good buddy that lives in Nebraska now, and he hunts, and so we talk about that type of stuff. I've actually been to Nebraska turkey hunting before, so done that, and little experience with Nebraska anyway. Nebraska is a pretty cool state. It's got a lot of diversity, from the west to the east half. It's pretty crazy how diverse the state actually is. So
well, out in the western, you have a lot of mule deer, and then you get a bit further east, and then you have mule deer and whitetails mixed. And then on this end of the state that I'm on the east end, we don't have any mule deers here that I've never seen one, just always whitetails. And then, we have, varieties of turkeys, and, you got to hunt them muleys differently than you do the whitetails.
Oh, for sure. Yep. We had primarily mule deer around here when I grew up. And now we have mostly whitetails. They've kind of taken over. So, and I don't know all the reasons, for all of that. Speculation is what I've got, but I guess, we've talked to some people too within the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, and, I don't think anybody truly knows. I still think they're trying to put put the pieces of the puzzle together on why muleys are getting moved out and whitetails are taking over. Out here, I'm sure poaching was an issue because we've got roads every mile, and muleys don't tend to be as elusive. They'll stand out in the middle of the fields in the middle of the day, and, things of that nature. So during rifle season, they're definitely more susceptible. They would definitely be more susceptible to poaching, but I'm sure there's disease. Some people have theories on whitetails pushing them out, being a more aggressive species, more adaptable species. So there's a lot of theories and different ideas about what happened there, but it's kind of sad to see it go away, though, from growing up and hunting muleys all the time to now. I mean, you're just excited when you see one. So
yeah, that's it. It all changes, the
oh yeah.
The amount of housings in there, the crops, you're losing crops, and then the muleys, like the more open space, and as you take away the open space, I can see where they would move out into more open space. And
100% habitat loss, chemicals. Chemicals would be at this point for upland birds, turkey populations. And you got to think, where do mule deer inhabit? They're more in your open crop fields, things of that nature more often. So maybe that does have something to do with it. They're probably more susceptible to being hit with chemicals. Your whitetails are more down in creek bottoms and places, where they're going to be away from that more often, not all the time. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know. But I know, with some of the newer farming practices and all the chemicals, it can't be good for the wildlife.
No.
I think there's a direct correlation to, since we've been seeing more of the no-till practices and things out in this area, the populations of all of our game species are dropping off. So there's got to be something there.
Yeah, there's a correlation. It's just, what do we do? Yeah, we got to adapt. Well, we've been talking, looks like almost about an hour and a half now. So,
Sorry, blinds, sun's getting in my face.
well, you had raccoon stripes on your face for a while.
Yeah, yeah. I finally noticed it, so I should have shut that up, but
Yeah. Oh well, that's all right. Makes an interesting video.
yeah, oh, for sure. For sure.
Will, what would you like to say to our audience in closing?
I don't know. I'll just kind of reiterate what I said earlier. I mean, I'm going to look at it from a hunter standpoint, since that's what brought me into archery and that's what keeps me in archery is hunting. And just, good luck to everybody this season. Hunt your hunt, shoot what makes you feel happy, and just have fun. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Hunt for you. And like I said, have fun, kill what you want to kill. So.
Yeah, good point. You want to kill it, kill it. Just make sure
Exactly.
you eat it.
As long as you're hunting legally and ethically, then, do what makes you happy.
Yeah, that's good advice to, everybody, just no matter what you're doing, whether you're, archery or whatever sport you're doing, you just gotta, make you happy. That's what we got to do. And I know I'll put a link in the podcast to your website.
Cool.
So anybody wants to contact you, and just click on that link, go right to your website. When I upload it to my YouTube channel, I have a link in there for that. And then, of course, anybody in the group can, always respond back to us and go from there. But anybody listening on podcasts, it'll be in the description as well. So if you're not listening while you're driving, you can go in there and catch a link. And just remember, we do this twice a week, and it's a lot of fun. And if you know anybody that is interested in talking about archery, let me know, because we'd be glad to have you on. There's no requirement other than we start talking about archery, and we get in whatever we want to talk about.
All over the board.
Yeah, all over the board. It's just wherever it is, and no specific agenda, and start archery. Talk archery. That's it.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, my name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host on Archery Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one.